Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. I am your host, Sean Hayes, and with me, sorry, old habits die hard. I don't have any co-hosts, but I'm here to bring you the latest and greatest geeky news of this past week. Got some really interesting, some really wild news this week. Have some really unfortunate stuff. And we're gonna do a deep dive. I'm gonna, we talk an awful lot about Nintendo on the podcast, and I feel like we don't do a whole lot for the other sort of big game console developers, we'll say. So this week I'm going to do a deep dive on the PlayStation Showcase, since that was a big deal. A lot of big stuff coming out for that. And then switching things up a bit for Questlog, not Pokemon related. So, that said, we are getting storms, so if the stream suddenly cuts out, we lost power. That's why. And for audio listeners, if the audio cuts out, it would be because, again, we lost power. Like, the stream might cut out because of internet, but, anyway, hopefully none of that happens, and that we're all doing okay. So, why don't we get right into our quick-fire news? All right. So first up, we have Skyraiders of Abarax. This is going to be a third-party Sky Pirates setting for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition by Tracy and Laura Hickman, who are some of the authors of Dragonlance, as well as Dark Sun, I think? Possibly? So, again, this is a Sky Pirates setting. It's got flying ships. It's got sort of steampunk-esque technology. It's got cat people. It's got, again, sort of Age of Sail in the Sky sort of technology. What's interesting, particularly interesting, is more information about this will be discovered through, quote, magical books, and it will include a living tome system. So apparently some information has already been revealed through, like, a poem? I don't know. This is all very unusual, and it's a weird marketing scheme. But this is going to be coming to Kickstarter. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on with this living tome system, magical books, and how it ties into Sky Pirates, but sure. Why not? I also think it's perhaps quite telling that they're launching like a third-party setting instead of doing Dragonlance. So that may be a clue as to whether or not Dragonlance may be happening or not happening for 5th edition. So we'll see. Next up, the Emmys. So I don't know if they announced like the winners ahead of time, because there were definitely posts about WandaVision and the Mandalorian winning a bunch of Emmys, like, before I heard about the Emmys. Before I saw, like, a TV promo for the Emmys. So, I don't know if they announced them ahead of time. But WandaVision won Emmy Awards for fantasy sci-fi costumes, original music and lyrics for Agatha All Along, and for production design. The Mandalorian won awards for cinematography, prosthetic makeup, sound mixing, special visual effects, stunt coordination, music composition, and production design. Now, I should note, it's a little weird in that like, the Emmys are covering both 2020 and 2021. So, like, The Mandalorian had awards, like, some of the awards were for 2020, some of them were for 2021. WandaVision, obviously, it came out this year, so it was all 2021. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's nice to see. I mean, again, these are all, well, so I said production design, cinematography, prosthetic makeup, sound mixing, special visual effects, fantasy sci-fi costumes, stunt coordination. These are all things that like you kind of come to expect, like when a Star Wars property or a Marvel property, like big flashy sci-fi effects, and special effects, probably going to win a bunch of technical awards. However, original music and lyrics, that's a pretty neat one. Especially, and I mean, that just goes to show, Agatha all along, I mean, there's a reason why it gets remixed and mashed up over and over again. It's great. And music composition in Mandalorian is just fantastic. So, yeah, totally deserved. So yeah, kudos to Marvel and Lucasfilm. And it just goes to like, I mean, with the right talent and the right people, is you can have these properties go on to win awards. So yeah, nice to see, forays into, because I don't know if any of like the Netflix stuff. Of course, I mean, I also don't know if the Netflix Marvel properties were allowed to win Emmys for being on Netflix. I don't know. It's sort of a new territory now, and it's interesting that like stuff that goes directly to a streaming service, they're allowing to win television awards. I think that's particularly interesting. So next up, this is the Apple versus Epic case. Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers issued a permanent injunction against Apple to force them to allow developers to use their own payment processors. So what this means is that Apple will have to allow developers, if they wish, to include in their apps, like if it has any sort of like payments. So typically these are like for, free to play games that allow you to purchase cosmetic items and everything. So let's use like Pokemon Unite as an example, right? Or Pokemon Go as well. Right now they have a button, takes it to the App Store, or it goes through the App Store for payment processing. And through whatever funds you have through that and everything. If they so wished, they could, either set up their own payment processors or go through like PayPal or Square or Stripe or anything like that and bypass the App Store entirely, and that Apple would not be able to take a cut. So that's what that means. This is not that they have to allow third-party marketplaces and things. Like, you're not going to see the Epic Store or the Epic Launcher on iOS, especially since so this is it's not a huge, like, in theory, if developers chose to like make use of this, it could hurt Apple's profits through the App Store. But it remains to be seen, like, how much, whether developers are going to want to go through with it. But it allows them to give them that. It allows developers to have that flexibility, and it forces Apple to have to do that. However, she also ruled that Epic did in fact breach their contract. So Apple is within their rights to keep Fortnite off the App Store if they wish, and Epic is going to have to pay Apple a bunch of money, several millions of dollars, as penalties for breaching that contract. So, basically, there's two headlines that are going around right now for this, and kind of the hot take is that this is, that Epic won, this fight because like now it's forcing Apple to. In reality, I like the more measured take of, I mean, there's not really any winners. It's just like they both lost and just Epic lost more. So yeah, because they sort of got what they wanted, at the cost of they were still found to be in breach of their contract. And so they have to pay out a bunch of damages, and they don't actually get to benefit from this with Fortnite. So yeah, it's a big mess, basically. And like there wasn't exactly a ruling as to, like, it did not seem to factor into the decision as to whether Apple has a monopoly or not. But there was a specification that did allow for a further deliberations to be made, with like further cases if they wish. So there's that. So as of right now, Apple is not considered to have a monopoly in regards to the App Store. So that's also kind of a poking a hole in Epic's case. All right. This is where things start to get weird. NBA 2K22 will have Jake from State Farm as an NPC who hangs out in the game's open world area in front of a State Farm merch store. Now, let me repeat, a State Farm merch store where you can outfit your character, your basketball player, with State Farm merchandise, because that's apparently a thing. Your character can have what is admittedly a cringeworthy conversation where they're excited to meet Jake from State Farm and interact with him and be able to buy merch from him. And by doing so, like, you get like a State Farm collared shirt that apparently was not rendered very well, and it looks off. Like, it looks horrible. So yeah, this is an example of, I mean, sponsorships and like product placement is a tricky thing. Sometimes you can do it well. Sometimes you can't. This is a case of when you don't do it well. There's a video, and it looks awful. And honestly, I gotta say, I mean, I'm not. So, bear with me. I don't own a PlayStation or an Xbox. I have a PC and I've got a Switch. Traditionally, consoles that I've had have all been Nintendo consoles, right? But I don't necessarily, I don't like console wars, right? So this isn't a console war thing or whatever, but like, the game looks awful. I'm just gonna go out, like, it looks horrible. Like the model, like if that's what next gen is, like, I'll just stay with the Switch. I'll stay with indie games. Like, because at least then they know an aesthetic that looks decent, even if it's not like high fidelity. At least it looks nice. Because yeah, I can't. All right, we got to move on. I can't look at this horrible rendering of Jake from State Farm anymore. We're moving on. All right, Hawkeye. We got a trailer finally, so that we can see what exactly the series is about. It is coming to Disney Plus November 24th. And I saw this in one of the Discords that I'm in. It's so like it takes place around Christmas, so a lot of like the theming and the music is all Christmas based. So this makes me wonder if it's going to get into like the whole thing with Die Hard. And this was the point that was brought up, was like, if it's going to be like Die Hard, where like people insist that it's a Christmas film because it's set around, and like it provokes this whole new thing of like, is this a Christmas story, basically, where because it's set around Christmas time, and that factors into a lot of the story. But at the same time, like, it's an action film. Like, could you take all the Christmas elements out, set it at a different time of the year, and still have the same story? You know, and also, like, if there's going to be like little references and nods to like Die Hard, because it feels very similar. So we can see in the image here and in the trailer, it's you basically see this is where Hawkeye's past during the events of the Infinity Crisis, when he took up the mantle of Ronin, come back to haunt him. Which, you know, when you turn out to be a, you know, bloodthirsty vigilante who goes around killing members of the underground, they're not going to forget that. And so he's got to deal with that. And meets an unlikely ally in who's presumably Kate Bishop, who in the comics and in some of the games is like his protege, and then eventually takes over for Hawkeye. So this may be a way of like having another Avenger sort of retire to make room for new ones. So we also see his dog in this promo poster. I hope nothing happens to the dog. I don't want Hawkeye to have to be John Wick. Please no. Please no. That's enough dog violence, please. You know, it's Marvel and it's Disney. They're not going to do that. No. I'd be very surprised. So yeah. Also, bonus. I don't have a slide for it, unfortunately, because this was something that I just thought of. So bonus little tip. So Life is Strange is out. The new Life is Strange game is out. And this one's kind of got the internet scratching their heads because it has a DMCA or essentially like a stream safe mode, where what it does is it turns off the music for any songs in which you might get a copyright claim, which leads to some very interesting dialogue sequences, which are geared heavily toward having music, and there's just nothing. It looks like there's a scene of characters like playing air guitar when it's supposed to be set to music that they're playing along with it, and instead now they're just like silently playing air guitar and jamming out. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. That's, you know, it's publishers and developers are having to think of some really weird ways on how to address DMCA. And we get weird situations like this. So who knows? I mean, really, what should happen is this stuff being restreamed should factor into licensing agreements. And the music industry really needs to get on the ball. Also, thanks Metallica. Every time DMCA is brought up, I'm gonna blame Metallica for it. That's just how it's gonna go these days, folks. Because it's kind of so Metallica, as far as I know, and from what I understand, it's DMCA came about as the result of the Napster case, which and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but that Metallica brought against Napster for the resharing of their and basically the pirating of their music, which led to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which is why we have all these problems around music on streams and in YouTube videos and things like that. Which again would not be an issue if licensing agreements factored essentially rebroadcasting the stuff as part of it, or music labels just made it easier for content creators to license music. So also, Shout out and thank you to labels like Game Shops, Monster Cat. I'm trying to think of who else, but like those are ones that I use personally that make it really easy. Because, like in the case of Game Shops, they handle it and produce stuff under Creative Commons and like have it be under a Creative Commons license, so it's covered. And Monster Cat, like, they make it really easy for a content creator to just get a license for the music. Again, I'm mad. Okay, let's get off this topic and get into the deep dive. All right, so for the deep dive, I just have the one slide. I'm not doing a slide for every single game that they showcase in the PlayStation Showcase. So, first up, let's talk about this weird opening. I don't know what LARP chess, essentially, or live action chess, you know, as an action movie has to do with anything they showed in the PlayStation. It's just like some sort of weird marketing campaign for just like play in general. But I don't know. It was weird, and it didn't really fit with anything else. Like there were no chess games. I was expecting it to be just like a game reveal of like, oh, this is like some sort of, I don't know, weird action shooter game that like also involves chess pieces or something, or just a straight up chess game that like they just really want to hype up to get you hyped up for chess. Nope, it's just marketing. I don't know. I don't know. It was weird. It's going to be in the thumbnail, and it's going to be related to the title of this episode. So, first up, Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic remake. So big thing about, a lot of people were excited about this, with the exception of Xbox fans, very salty about it. One thing is to note, this is a PlayStation console exclusive. This is also coming to PC, according to Lucasfilm, LucasArts. I don't know who's making. I don't know who's in charge of this stuff. But it's also coming to PC. So, I have to say I never played the original game. I did play the Old Republic, like the Star Wars MMO. You know, and that was pretty interesting. So I don't know. You know, if my computer can handle it, maybe I'll pick it up and see how it looks. See if like they updated systems or what. You know, if they modernized a bunch of stuff. From what I hear, it's very similar to like it's got that dialogue system from the Old Republic, but also gameplay sort of like the Elder Scrolls. So, or not Elder Scrolls, but like Baldur's Gate. Now I have to say, I tried Baldur's Gate 1 on Switch. I hated it. I did not enjoy it. And I'm saying this as somebody that played second edition D&D. There's a reason I don't play second edition D&D anymore, and all that game did was reinforce why. So there's that. That's right. Yeah, not Elder Scrolls, but Baldur's Gate. So who knows? Again, I'll see. I'll see what's up with that. Project Eve. Now, this game looked weird. Like really weird. Even weirder than most JRPGs weird. But it has that feel of it. Like a very sort of Xeno feel where, I don't know, there's some sort of weird alien symbiote thing taking over a satellite station up in orbit. And your character's wearing very flashy bodysuit outfit, and you're running around doing all sorts of like wild stunt moves. I don't know. I also don't know if it's related to Parasite Eve. I'm not really sure, because I remember reading about Parasite Eve when it first came out. And that, to me, it just seemed like kind of in the genre of, you know, like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, sort of in that. but like I don't remember much about it. So yeah, just weird. I don't know, very, very weird. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. So this is a Borderlands game where it's basically you take Borderlands and you mash it up with D&D. So it's fantasy style Borderlands that you are in a D&D game basically, and just mashing up those two aesthetics. So it is Borderlands, and the gameplay is Borderlands, but it's just fantasy style, very weird fantasy elements. Because it's Tiny Tina. I mean, I have to say, for me personally, I'm not a fan of Borderlands. I'm also not a fan of Tiny Tina. So this game, not for me. But if you are a Borderlands fan, chances are you're probably going to be pretty interested in this. So go check that out. Next up, Forspoken. So this is a game where, like, it starts off with one kind of narrative, and you think it's going to be one style of game, and then all of a sudden, like, a portal appears, and you get yanked through the portal and thrown into a fantasy world. So it, like, takes a hard right turn. And now, it's kind of the stereotypical, like, stranger in a strange land is given mystical powers and then has to use said powers to save the kingdom from a rival who has similar powers, or a rival who has magical powers of their own. So it's a very hero's journey type thing with an element of like pulled from somewhere else. You see this a lot with like 80s movies. I have to say, the magic system looks very interesting, and a lot of the magical effects look great. Seems very focused on big flashy attack spells. In D&D parlance, we would call that evocation. It looks like there are some weird like jumping or some shielding effects maybe. I'm interested to see if they have some more interesting and niche magical effects, instead of just like a lot of like evocation type things where you're just battering enemies with elemental forces. Next up, Rainbow Six Extraction. So this is another one of Tom Clancy Rainbow Six games, where third-person shooter with sort of tactical elements to it. But the whole point of this is like aliens invade, like weird crystal aliens invade, and your goal is to extract, like the name, to find survivors and people that were kidnapped and extract them. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the Tom Clancy series has delved into a lot of the supernatural before. I find it interesting that a lot of these shooters that were aimed at being like very historical, or cyberpunk-esque shooters, where you are on the side of the military, or like a military unit, started delving into like weird supernatural stuff. Like we've seen that with Call of Duty, and Battlefield, like with zombie modes, and now like aliens and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if it's I don't know what is causing that shift. If it's just like the developers are getting tired of it and want to do something different. If it's the audience is getting tired of it and wants something different. I don't know. If there's external factors, if it's internal factors. But it just seems odd to me. Like it seemed like a very different game than what you usually see from the Rainbow Six games. Next up, Alan Wake Remastered. So this is a remastered version of the game Alan Wake, which is it's about a writer trying to piece together like the events of the past week, and also again all sorts of like I don't necessarily know if it's supernatural elements so much as just weird elements. You know, in a town, it kind of reminds me of like a Stephen King type thing, where it's like a weird town. You know, locals may or may not be very helpful, and there's some weird stuff going on. GTA 5 and GTA Online, they're just getting ported with a little bit of fine tuning for PS5. Not much to say there. It's the same game. Ghostwire Tokyo. So we saw this at E3. This is, I'm trying to figure out a way to describe it. Like, you get caught up in some sort of supernatural mist, fog, or whatever, and like other people are getting like consumed and their souls are getting lifted, but yours doesn't. However, you're like burned or marked somehow, and that allows you to punch ghosts. And you do, and basically you go around ghost busting with martial arts through downtown Tokyo. It's great. It's weird. It's very colorful. So I like that. I like when you know, properties that deal with ghosts and supernatural and stuff like that go towards a more saturated, colorful palette than like a desaturated sort of gray palette. I mean, I actually do like that about the, what was it, the basically the Ghostbusters film that was released a couple of years ago. With the very colorful ghost palette. I actually like that movie, so you know, you can feel however you want to feel about it. It's not going to change you know, my enjoyment of it. But we also saw that with like Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, where the original builds went with a very like desaturated palette, and then Nintendo was not satisfied with that and wanted to push it in the other direction, and so they made it like this very Twilight, saturated, hazy sort of look with like those sort of afternoon light color, evening light colors, and they felt that that made it sort of creepier. And I have to say, like, you know, the bright neon lights and everything, I don't think it necessarily makes it creepier, but like I think it changes the tone of the game so that, you know, there are spooky elements to it. Like, these are all ghosts. There's some creep factor, but like, I think it reinforces the idea that you are supposed to be like fighting them and binding them and sealing them, as opposed to like this is not survival horror. This is like an action game. And I think the color palette sort of reinforces that. So that looks pretty cool. Guardians of the Galaxy. Again, this is not PlayStation exclusive. It is coming to other platforms. However, so this is by Square Enix, who also made the Avengers game, however you feel about that game. So we saw this again at E3, so this isn't sort of any new information, but looks like it's the antagonist of the game is going to be the Universal Church of Truth, or it's got some name like that. We also see Cosmo. I forget what Cosmo's title is, but basically like the space dog or something. And a bunch of like other little references in there. I think there was some gameplay that they showed off, but it is single player. We know that, and I can't remember if like you only play as Quill or if you can swap between other characters and do stuff. I think you only get to play as Quill, and you can issue commands to other characters. Rocket has a beard. It's weird. I don't quite understand that. So yeah. Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt. This is a Vampire the Masquerade Battle Royale game. Which to me, I'm so confused by this. Like, why? Like, the whole purpose of Vampire the Masquerade was like, it started as a reaction to the rise and popularity of Dungeons and Dragons. And for people that wanted a game that focused more on role playing and the social aspect of role playing games. But then to like create something that has none of that. I mean, I don't know. It feels like it's just taking like that the only reason that it has any tie-in with Vampire the Masquerade is because if you made a vampire game, Vampire Battle, like, or if it's just that they needed funding and so they said, well, we'll license this. Or I don't know. It confuses me. And like as far as the actual gameplay goes, like it looked, I don't know, generic. Like it didn't look really unique. I don't know. Also, they showed off like Toreador, which that's not one of the vampire clans that would get all up in like firefights and stuff. Like they're all about getting lost in like art and decadence. I don't know. It's like put Gangrel in there. Like they have Bruja, they have Nosferatu, which is a little weird. Like they have Nosferatu and they don't give them like creature abilities, like summoning creatures of the night, which like that's one of their whole shticks because they get an appearance rating of 0. Like you don't get any dots in appearance. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's just it seems like somebody wanted to make a battle royale game and like they needed a theme for it. And so they decided, vampires are cool. Oh, but wait, like if we just have it based on like nobody'll like it feels like a generic game that they tacked on Vampire the Masquerade to in an effort to get recognition for it. That's how I feel about it. Again, if you enjoy it, more power to you. Just for me, the brand feels confusing with the nature of the content. Deathloop is up next. So I've actually watched a little bit of this being played on stream. It's weird. It's really weird. It's like you're in some sort of like afterlife, maybe, where like you just die over and over again, and your goal is to figure out how to break the loop and stop dying over and over again. But the opening of the game really leans into that, I gotta say. However, also seems to be suffering from quite a few technical problems. Lots of stuttering issues, which is really bad for a first-person shooter. So, I don't know. Needs, excuse me. Seems like it needs a little bit more polish. Next up, so Kid, I don't know if it's Kid Amnesia, Kid A Amnesia. I'm actually gonna have to. Oh, that's right. It's being okay. So this is something that's being released in conjunction with Radiohead. An upside down digital from. Oh. Okay, so it's like a. It's weird. Like it's an exhibition from Epic and Radiohead. All right, again, weird stuff. I wonder if it's only a matter of time before we see it in Fortnite. Like, since they're doing all these weird exhibition type thing, because we talked about the Martin Luther King thing in Fortnite a couple weeks ago or a week ago. I don't remember. I don't know. Sure, more unique experiences. We have next up is Chia, which is a soul jumping game. So this is like you're on an island, and the main character of the same name has an ability where she can go inhabit like her soul can exit her body and inhabit and essentially possess other creatures, and presumably use it to like solve puzzles and stuff. So like they showed like a dog, a crab, a like seagull so that you could fly around and do stuff. So a tropical open world adventure. So it looks like this is also coming to Steam. So yeah, I mean, it looked really charming. A neat little, cute little aesthetic. And it just turn into different animals. What's there not to like about that? All right, so this next one. So the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. I had to look this up because I was like, is that Uncharted? Like, I don't actually know. I've never played Uncharted before. Like I've seen a little bit of gameplay. But like they didn't say Uncharted anywhere in the showcase. They just gave like the names of the individual games. And I was like, oh, well, like I didn't know they were names of the individual titles. So this is like a remastered collection, it sounds like. So yeah, of Uncharted 4 specifically. Got a little teaser for a Wolverine game. No actual gameplay or anything, just like you know, and not showing a face, but it's like a bar that has been cleared out, like, and just people lying on the floor, flipped over tables and things. Like big bar brawl happened, and just like one guy sitting at the bar, drinking like what is like a whiskey or something, and somebody gets him from behind the bar and comes at him, and then you just see the claws come out, and like that's it. But that's gotten everybody all super excited. So I think it's been a while since we've had like a proper X-Men game. I think Wolverine, as far as I know, all we've seen Wolverine in are kind of like Ultimate Alliance type stuff and like ensemble games. So this will be interesting. Gran Turismo 7. For those that are into racing games, seems to a lot of customability options for your car and like a lot of stickers and racing decals and things like that. I mean, that's where my interest was, as far as the actual racing part, So there's that. Spider-Man 2 coming in 2023, I believe, which is a ways away. A lot of folks a little upset about that, but if it's going to be great, take the time. This is going to have Spider-Man, so Peter Parker and Miles Morales going around solving crimes, being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And it looks like Venom's going to play a part in this one. And then finally, a trailer for God of War Ragnarok. So this is going to take place after the most recent God of War game, where I'm not going to give a spoiler for that comes at the end of God of War. But once again, tying into Norse mythology, and trying to figure out what it takes to prevent Ragnarok. Even if that means potentially having to start a war to prevent the war? I don't know. So you see they go in search of Tyr, but they also encounter big mighty Thor. Apparently Thor's design in this game has caused somewhat of a controversy. as he is very solidly built and built like a power lifter, like a power weightlifter. And a lot of folks are angry about that because they're so used to, they want Thor to look like a jacked up Arnold Schwarzenegger, I guess. I don't know. I think it looks great. And I won't pick this up for myself. I'm excited to see other people play it. I'll be excited to watch streams of it. It's interesting to see. I can't remember his name, the main character's name. Hang on. Kratos. I couldn't remember Kratos' name. To see him advocate against violence and war. And I think that's an interesting take, because that's the whole point, right? Like, that's his whole shtick. And now to see him sort of reject that and push back against it, I think is interesting. So, yeah. I can't remember if we got a release date. Let me just look that up real quick. God of War Ragnarok release date 2022. There we go. So yeah, I mean, if it comes out on time, 2022 is going to be a good year for Sony. You're going to get Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok. So pretty decent. I don't know what Xbox has got coming out, but I can tell you, Nintendo better hope that like Breath of the Wild 2 actually comes out on time. I'm just saying. And if it does, that's just a good year for consumers. So yeah. And you know what? Speaking of Horizon, why don't we get into our quest log segment for this week? All right, so quest log is where I pick one goal, one geeky, nerdy gaming goal, and something that I want to achieve over the course of the week. Now, last week's was to finish the Kalos Pokedex, because I only had 2 Pokemon left. Mission accomplished. So that means I now have the Kanto, Hoenn, and Kalos Pokedexes complete. The Galar Pokedex is almost complete. I have a bunch of like pseudo legendaries and legendaries that I need to get from that. Depending on what some of my friends are doing with their copies of Shield, I may try and have them see if they'll trade me stuff. If that fails, I don't know, maybe I'll just buy a copy of Shield myself and play through and unlock that stuff and then just trade it over. But yeah, we're doing real well. This is like, I have like 50 Pokemon left to complete the entire thing. So yeah, that's probably the closest I've ever been to completing a national Pokedex. As far as in-game, like, it was a special moment for me when I completed the Kanto Pokedex, because the closest I came previously was when Red and Blue were still fresh out, like in middle school, and I had 149 out of 150 Pokemon, and all I needed was Jolteon, and my friend had one and wouldn't trade it to me. So yeah. Anyway, new goal for this week is to complete Horizon Zero Dawn. And you know what? I think I'm far enough into the game that I'm gonna say main story and then the Frozen Wilds DLC. So we'll have this be like a stretch goal. So at the very least, complete main story. I think I can do that. And then if I do that and it's still, you know, pretty early in the upcoming week, or, you know, like if I finish it by the end of this week, then we'll see if we can complete the Frozen Wilds DLC. I'm at the point where I've kind of like collected almost everything, almost all the side quests and stuff like that. And so I have only like 1 or 2 areas left, I think. So I think it's doable. So there we go. I will report back next week and see if I completed that. I have to say, really enjoying that game. It's got a lot of really cool stuff. It's also there's a lot of similarities between that and Breath of the Wild. I think it was a great example of like parallel evolution of those game concepts. And for me, I was kind of having that idea with my own D&D setting, and so a lot of interesting things, or ways for me to deliberately leave stuff ambiguous, so that way if somebody has like, you know, for one person to think like, oh, well, maybe it's like Horizon, and one person be like, oh, well, maybe it's like Hyrule or Breath of the Wild, not Hyrule Warriors, like Breath of the Wild, and for another person to have another idea. It's feeding into my dungeon master brain, and really helping to advance that stuff. So, I would very much recommend it. You know, I have it on Steam. It runs really well on my computer. I'm able to use the Switch Pro controller, so it's good. I definitely recommend, if you're a fan of RPGs, especially open world RPGs, you gotta play this. And so I'm just glad that they released it to Steam, so that I actually could. Like it's a case where like if I didn't, you know, I probably would have watched like streams of it, and get a feel for it and enjoy the story and everything. I will say one of the things that I don't like is they give you these dialogue choices that like tie into certain personality traits, and then like it makes no difference. And I feel like at that point, like, why bother then? Like, if you're just presenting like an illusion of choice, I'd rather have the choices be meaningful. But yeah, as far as I can tell, like it hasn't impacted anything in any way. So, aside from like one quest, but that's a choice of like whether to let someone live or die. Which, if they die, like you can still progress the quest just without them. So, who knows? That said, this is going to wrap up our episode for this week. Thank you all for joining me. As always, if you want to hear, or if you want to get more stuff from 8-Bit Adventures, you can check out the website over at 8-bitadventures.com. Over there, you can get the 8-Bit Adventures comic. You can get artwork, VODs of most of the streams, podcasts, and more. If you like that content and you would like to help support that content, please consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/8bitadventures. Patrons get early access to comics, which now that I've been doing comic streams, it's like 3 weeks ahead now that they get stuff. So they're way ahead. There are patron exclusive comics featuring my dog, the bestest boy in the world, and behind the scenes D&D content for Tales of Jamora. Big shout out, thank you to all of my current patrons. Thank you so much for your continued support. It means the world to me, and thank you. Finally, our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his work over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. Big thank you for giving us permission to use One Up. It's a great track. There is a version with vocals, so if you want to hear that, you know, go check it out on his Bandcamp page. So yeah, we're done. So hope you all stay healthy, stay safe, And as always, have fun, happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.